Hey friends, so you know those cool videos you sometimes see on Instagram or YouTube where you've got a prop spinner that has these awesome trails on the tips of their tools? Well, I've done a previous series of tutorials on how to get that effect in everything from Luminancer to Adobe After Effects. But one of the things that I skipped over in that series was Adobe Premiere. Part of the reason was that I didn't actually have a copy of it at the time. But I've gotten a request from one of my friends on a Facebook group, and I decided to go ahead and do a tutorial for you guys on this. Drex here from DrexFactor.com, and today we're going to go over how to create ghost trail effects using just Adobe Premiere Pro. Make sure you hit that subscribe and notification bell so you know exactly when I'm going to be dropping a new video. Before we dive in, I just want to take a moment to give a shout out to the friends of the channel. Big thanks to Dark Monk, Amazing Lights, Flow Toys, Spinballs, Spinsconsin, and UltraPoi for helping to make the videos on this channel possible. You can visit them all on the web by following the links down in the description of this video. So I've gone ahead and taken the liberty of preparing some test footage that features myself spinning some Spinoptic poi from last night. And I'm going to go ahead and move us over to Adobe Premiere so you can see everything that I'm going to be doing to create these ghost trails here. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is grab a copy of my footage here, and I'm going to pull it over to the timeline to create a new sequence for myself. Now, I'm going to roll on over here to the effects window, and we're actually going to go over two different methods for creating these trails, one of which gives you a little bit more granular control, and one of which hides a lot of the work for you so that you can get a little bit more detail into the trails that you're creating, right? Now, the first version of this we're going to do, I'm actually going to start off by adding more video tracks. I want to get to a total of 5 here, right? Cool. Now that that's done, I'm going to take my footage here and make a copy of it, paste that, and stick it on the second video layer. I'm going to toggle the visibility on the first layer so that I'm just seeing the second layer. And I'm going to go over here to my video effects and grab, under keying, color key. I'm doing color key because, as you can see, the Spinoptic poi that I'm using in this video, I decided to color green. If you're using poi that have white lights in them, you could use a Luma key instead, but I just wanted to throw color in here, so either approach really works. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom into my footage just a little bit here so I can get a pretty clear view of my poi, and I'm going to grab my key color here, and I'm going to go ahead and grab a segment of these LED poi right here. Now I'm going to play around with the color tolerance just a little bit and see how much of the poi I'm able to select off of it. Now you see I got a little bit of my arm, which I would really rather not have there. So I'm going to increase my edge thin a wee bit, and then I'm going to decrease my color tolerance until I have just the poi and not my arms here. Increase that just a little bit. All right, cool. That's probably close enough. Now what I need to do is I need to increase my edge feather because I want the edges of this selected area here that's black to be a little bit blurry, and you'll see why in a second here. Essentially, the black areas right here are the color that I'm selecting using the color keyer, and we're actually going to want to switch this around so that it's selected everything other than this color. I'm actually going to do just a little bit more work here with the edge thinner so that I get just the piece, just the poi here, and not my hands. Okay, there's a little bit of my arm selected, but I think it's going to be okay overall. Cool. So now we are going to go ahead and switch the selected area. So I'm going to go ahead and come over here to Alpha Adjust and drag Alpha Adjust over to that second layer of video once again, yeah? And I'm going to scroll on down here because really what we want to do is we want to select just the green bits of the footage. So I'm going to go to invert alpha, and now we can see I've got this set up in such a way that only the poi are visible, everything else is gone. And I'm going to go ahead and decrease my color tolerance just a hair, Yeah, so the idea is you want to get as much of the poi as possible without selecting anything else. Okay, I think that'll do for now. Cool deal. So I'm gonna go ahead and select my footage, and I'm gonna hit Control C in order to copy it. And now I'm gonna paste a second copy over here that I'm gonna drag over and put on the video 3 slot. Now I'm gonna go ahead and paste another copy. I'm gonna put up here on video 4, and I'm gonna paste one more copy that I'm gonna stick up here on the 5th slot, right? Now I'm gonna select the footage on the 2nd slot. I'm gonna go over here to opacity and make the opacity 80%. I'm gonna make the opacity on layer 3 60%. I'm gonna make the opacity on layer 4 40%. I'm gonna make the opacity on layer 5 20%. So I'm basically like stepping down from, if the base layer is 100%, I'm going down 20% with each layer so that I go from 100 to 0 over the course of those 5 layers, right? Okay, so next thing we need to do, we're going to toggle back the visibility on our base layer, and I'm gonna go ahead and go back to fit. And we're gonna zoom really far in on the beginning of our footage here. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna select the top 4 layers. These are only the layers that we've done our color keying on. And I'm gonna go ahead and move them all over a single frame by hitting Command or Apple and then the right arrow on my keyboard to move them over just 1 frame. Now I'm gonna select just the top 3 layers and do the same thing. Hit Command and the right key, and that slides them over 1 frame. Now just the top 2 frames and hit Command right arrow, moves them both over 1 frame. And finally, just the top layer and hit Command right arrow, and that moves just the top layer over 1 frame. Now, here's what happens when I move over to a place where I have all 5 layers visible. If I hit play, check out those beautiful trails, yeah? Cool. It's there's a little bit of jitter on this right now because I haven't like pre-rendered it or anything like that, and you can see some gaps here in the sides of these. So if I were to go back and do a second pass on these, I might want to reduce my color tolerance in such a way that I get less of a black gap on this. But overall, this isn't bad for a first attempt, right? Now let's jump on back over here to the assembly window because I want to do a second version of this using a completely different effect, which is I'm going to take my footage once again, drag it over the timeline to create a second sequence. And now when I jump over to effects, I'm going to do a search for echo. It's over here under time. I'm going to drag it to my footage. And now we have a bunch of effects operators that we can play with here. The first one is echo time, number of echoes, starting intensity, and decay, right? So we also want to change this echo operator right here away from add, because if you look at this footage, it suddenly looks brighter than the last footage that we were working with. We want to go from add to maximum, which is going to make it more semi-transparent and easier on the eyes here. What happens if we leave it on just add is the entirety of the footage, it will get much brighter over time, and we don't want to have that happen. Cool. So echo time we don't want to worry about. You can do some interesting effects if you do play around with this, but for today's purposes, we probably don't want to mess with it. We're going to switch the number of echoes to 4 because that's the number of echoes we had in our previous example. Now we've got starting intensity and decay. Our starting intensity, we're going to keep at 1 because that's the brightness that the echoes start at. But the decay, we're going to set to 0.8 because that does the same thing that the last operator we played with did, which is that it decreases the brightness of the echo effect about 20% for each individual echo. So now if we go ahead and play this, check that out. Really beautiful trails coming off of that. And it takes Premiere just a little while to kind of pre-render this and everything. But by and large, as you can see, this is a little bit cleaner looking version of the effect, right? Now, this version of the effect is also really helpful if, say, you have a set of footage where you've got poi of 2 different colors. Right? So here I've got some footage where I've got both an orange poi as well as a green poi. And if I set up my echo once again, you'll see that I can very, very, very easily set it up so that the echo works just as well with two different colored poi. Now, I could do this with the manual version that we started off with, where I add layers on top of it and everything. But it would take a lot longer because I would need to have a separate series of layers for each individual poi. That is, I would have to have one color keying layer to start with that worked off of the orange poi and one color keying layer that worked off of the green poi. And so I would wind up then with a total of 9 layers instead of 5. There would be 4 layers for the orange poi and 4 layers for the green poi, and that's just more work than I feel like doing right now. But the echo effect really easily lets me do that, right? I can also do things like increase the number of echoes that I'm gonna stick on this. Like say if I wanted to go to 15 echoes. That's really, really easy to do. It's gonna take a second for the program to render and catch up with me and add that many echoes to it. But as you can see, I get a much, much, much longer trail out of that, right? Cool. So why would you want to use one versus the other? Why would you want to use echo versus the color keying effect in the grand scheme of things? Well, so if you look really closely at my body, as I'm playing around with the echo effect here. The echo is also on my body as well, so my body gets kind of blurry as I'm moving around. I'll go ahead and cut to showing you the footage so you get a better view of that right here. You see how like my arms and legs become really, really blurry as I'm moving around and everything? If instead you use the keying version of this effect, you'll see that I can dial this in such a way that I do not have the echo effect on my body. My body is super crisp, super visible, awesome, right? So overall, which effect you use really depends upon what you're going for in your footage. If you would rather have yourself be really crisp, then you want to use the transparent layers version of this effect. If you want to use different color poi or have more echoes on them, it's really better to use the echo effect simply because it's less of a pain in the butt and becomes less of a logistical hurdle, right? Cool, so that is how you get down this echo effect in Adobe Premiere. So, I'm gonna switch back over to just talking with you over here. And I'm going to tell you guys, I would love to see your versions of your own footage using this effect, those of you guys who have Adobe Premiere. If you want to go ahead and edit together versions of this yourself, post them to Instagram with the hashtag DrexFactorPoi so I can see your awesome looking trails footage, yeah? Thank you very much to the folks in my Drex Factor Poi enthusiasts group for requesting this tutorial. If you guys would like to get an inside track on all of the work that I'm doing with my videos, you can join that group. It's called Drex Factor Poi Enthusiasts on Facebook. I'm going to include a link to it down in the description here. And aside from that, I just want to thank my wonderful patrons on Patreon for helping to make the videos on this channel possible. And if you guys would like to join my Patreon, you can join for as little as $1 a month, and you get great behind the scenes stuff like production information on how I create my videos and everything. And I guess that's it. Thanks so much for the request, and thank you guys for watching. Peace. If you dug this video, please leave me a like and subscribe to see more like it in the future by clicking here. Over here are some other videos that you may enjoy, including an entire playlist of videos that are just like the one that you just watched. Finally, if you like the work that I do, please consider signing up to support my videos over at my Patreon right here. Thank you for watching, and have a good one. Peace.